Welcome, welcome back, everyone, to 1111 for our end of the week surprise special guest for our theme on dreams come true. I will tell you right off the bat, we have one of the most special guests ever because she is actually a fairy. And I'm not joking when I say that. She is the incarnation of a fairy. She lives and breathes the fairy lifestyle, the most whimsical person I know. She's creative. She's incredibly hardworking. She's incredibly bright, as beautiful on the inside as she is on the outside. Practical, a ton of common sense, everything you could ever want in a so-called mythical creature, except she's real. And she runs an amazing business of which I'm a huge fan. So, surprise mystery guest, will you please tell us who you are and what you do?
Oh my goodness, I have no idea who you're talking about. My name is ELENA NILSSON. And I guess I am a professional fairy. And I'm the owner of Dream Come True Tea and Party Room.
Yay! So when I first came up with the theme for this week, every week I have to decide, who am I going to get as the guest person that we interview? And there's someone I've been wanting on forever that I do need to introduce you to because she writes about fairy tales for a living. She's literally a fairy tale historian. And I had her listed because I was trying to plug her in. And then I looked at the term again. I'm like, dream come true. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so obvious. I have to get ELENA. Even if she doesn't want to do it, she has no choice because you have embodied the spirit of dreams come true. And that is probably the perfect segue to ask how you got into your line of work overall, and then tell us about how you got into the tea room business. So please tell us about both.
Well, I've been in the party business for about 21 years now. And prior to that, I always knew that I wanted to work for myself. And I have had a love of fantasy for my entire life. And I used to make, well, I still do, fairy costumes and all things fairy. Back in the day, lots of like jewelry, pillows that had pictures of fairies, things like that. And I would do my version of a Tupperware party. It just wasn't Tupperware. It was all little goodies that I made. And I would go to people's homes and the host would invite their friends and they would buy things. And then the host would get some free items for hosting the event. And I would also do like craft fairs. With that, you would work so long making things and setting everything up. And then once you did it, you made all of like $200,
Right. On a good day. Yeah.
This isn't going to work. And I also used to sell to local children's boutiques. And one of the stores that I was restocking, it was a store down on Main Street in Seal Beach. It was called Cradle Will Rock. And they sold the cutest little punk rock and rockabilly clothes for little kids. And she used to sell my fairy wings. One day I was in there stocking the store and we were talking about like the latest Tupperware party. And a customer of hers was in there listening to our conversation. And she said, "Oh, that's very interesting." And she said, "What other kind of parties have you done?" And all I could think of when she said that is one of the ladies that I did a party for, she did it as a tea party. And I said, "Oh, well, we've done a tea party." And she said, "Oh, so you mean little fairy parties for children?" And and I was like, "That's it." That's it.
I have to interject here and say, because for you, this is just business as usual. But for other people to think that 21 years ago, you were doing fairy stuff professionally, it was not mainstream. Mythical stuff wasn't in. This is such a different world. And
Yeah,
you were,
internet was, pretty new too.
yeah. You were so ahead of your time with this stuff. So yeah, when you say were a party planner, it's not like you're doing the usual thing that everybody else does with just regular balloons and a nice cake and maybe some streamers and some mason jars with cute straws. You were doing stuff with fairy wings. I remember I never got to go to your space on Studebaker, I believe, in Long Beach. And for those who don't know the cities we're talking about, Seal Beach and Long Beach are both in California. I live in Long Beach now, used to live in Seal Beach, had a tea room in Seal Beach 25 years ago now. So when ELENA started all this, there was nothing like this. When I started La Vie Sirène magazine, I don't know, 11 years ago, and we had our first issue was the mermaid issue, people were like, "You're doing an entire issue just about mermaids?" So even then, even just 11 years ago, it was still like, "I don't understand." So you were hugely ahead of your time. So then if you can, give us the little history of you having that first party facility, doing the teas, and then having your own dream come true when you moved.
So after that lady said, so you do little fairy tea parties for children, I could not get home fast enough. And for 3 months, just made costumes and decorations and a little tent. And then I had my go at making a homemade website that was super cheesy. And when I launched it, I didn't know if I would get any hits. I had no idea what I was doing. But then the phone rang and I was shocked and I I booked a party, then it rang again. And at the time, I was working as a travel agent for Yacht Club for 13 years, actually, as a travel agent. And I was starting to get busy on the weekends doing the parties. And once I got a professional website made is when it really took off. And for about 2 years, I was pretty much working two full-time jobs, travel during the day, and then at night work on getting all the parties ready and then doing the parties at the weekend. And I was pretty much burning the candle at both ends and had to decide after a while to pick one. And fairies always
Fairies always win.
so I quit the travel business and I was just doing the mobile parties at the time. And then my mom, because people were always asking me if I had a venue that they could come to, and I didn't. My mom, so sweet, she gave me a loan to open up my first location, which was the one you're mentioning down on Studebaker.
Mhm.
And at that time, it was just parties. I didn't have the tea room yet, but I had my eye on this one location for many years when I was trying to learn about throwing a tea party and learn about teas and the whole process and the different styles of tea. And I was at that location on Studebaker for about 9 years. It went by fast. 9 years, and it's now a bike shop.
Oh,
Uh, where we get our bikes fixed, by the way.
cool.
And it's funny because you could still see the stripes on the walls.
Oh, I love that.
So when COVID first happened, our little shopping center that I was in was having a difficult time like everybody else. And we had a landlord that I think just wasn't watching the news.
Oh.
So it was just a difficult time being at that complex. And I was driving one day and I noticed that there was a sign at the tea room that I would go to a lot because I love the way the exterior looked and inside the high ceilings and saw the potential of the place and just fell in love with it. And when I saw the for lease sign on there, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. I need to call this number. I'll never be able to afford it. The place is like double the size of what I have now, but I'm going to try. I'm going to call them. And so I called, and there were a lot of other businesses interested in it, understandably. The building was the original library of Long Beach.
Mhm.
So I can imagine a lot of people wanted the location. And so I decided I better write a letter explaining why I should get it over all of these other more qualified and have more experience. I wrote a letter and lo and behold, it worked.
Yay! And tell them what the name of it is.
It is Dream Come True Tea and Party Room. And my just one dream at a time. So, and we took about 5-6 months to remodel. It needed a lot of work, and it was all the beginning of COVID, so everything was shut down, anyways. And I put all my savings into it, all my relief loans, you name it. I put into the location, and once everything was done, we were still shut down because of COVID. So we're kind of just sitting there twiddling our thumbs for a while. And then they finally let us open up. It was outdoor dining only. And that went on for probably like 2-3 weeks, maybe like a month at the most. And then they shut us down again. And then once we were finally open, we had a good like 6-8 month run. And I was starting to hear rumors after the landlord that I had leased the space for had sold the building, I was starting to hear rumors that my location had been leased to another business. And it took a while to find out if that was the case or not. And of course, about 3 months before my lease was up, I got the letter, as did my two store neighbors, that we had 90 days to vacate, that they were not going to renew our lease. And the rumors were true. So it's now an animal dermatology place, which I need to take my dog to, actually.
What you went through, nobody could have survived. I was a customer at the time, still am, and I remember seeing you ripping out the floor, redoing the walls, spending all this time, money, effort to make this beautiful fairy oasis just to be shut down. You finally get to open again. You were so patient, you never complained, but the timing couldn't have been worse. You were hit harder by COVID as a business than most people I know. And then when you finally were open, I remember we got to eat in your cute little tent in the parking lot. Totally adorable. It was a great experience. And then they shut you down again. And like you said, you've got all this stuff that you had just redone. You've just got your new floors. You've just got this and that. When we say shut down, that was the state shutting people down. This isn't like her landlord or whatever. This was a big deal. That was the whole shelter in place or whatever was going on. And then you finally get open. You finally get momentum. You're still continuing to embellish the place and make it look lovely. And you brought up your mom's creativity and her talent as an artist. You know, she has really brought the fairiness of the place to life. She's just incredible. And she's another one who's just beautiful, just as sweet as she is lovely. Then when you mentioned that you were going to have to move, and it was right before Mother's Day, and for people who don't know about tea rooms, you hear a lot about tea through me because our nonprofit Whimsicality is all about tea, because every culture has a tea tradition. And when we talk about tea rooms, it's the places that serve the little sandwiches with no crust and the scones, and people wear hats, and it's a whole experience. And tea rooms basically live off of Mother's Day. You make enough money Mother's weekend and the one before and after that it kind of funds everything you're going to do, from buying your merchandise for Christmas to whatever it is. But Mother's Day is the biggest deal for a tea room. And you had to get out right before Mother's Day. And you hadn't even gotten to be open long enough to start recouping anything. You were just getting the momentum going. Yeah.
Cancel reservations and parties, but they were all very understanding.
Yeah, but I can't even imagine what you've gone through in the sleepless nights. And the place that wanted you out so fast was closed and vacant for how long?
2 years for sure. Fun fact, just because you had mentioned my mom, and
Oh, okay.
an amazing artist, and she's the beautiful fairy lady that painted both places, actually all three. Fun fact about her, she's actually Mother Nature. She used to go and do appearances with me as Mother Nature, and
Whoa.
at the time he was just a little one. He was 3-4 years old. He used to go and do the appearances with us. It would be myself, my mom as Mother Nature, I was a fairy, and I had Drake dressed as a little fairy boy, and he would throw the flower petals out as we would walk into
Oh
the
my
party.
God.
It was
That's
hilarious.
beautiful. I
Yes.
love that. That just made my day. So where did you end up when you were given the boot right before the biggest time of the year for you?
So, thanks to the amazing Blair Cohen, who runs the Bixby Knolls Business Association, I can't imagine being anywhere in Long Beach and having the support that we have from him. When I was on Studebaker, I didn't even know that a person with his title even existed to help the local businesses. I don't
Right.
does anywhere else. Truthfully, I still don't know of any other ones. He helps all the businesses there on Atlantic and Long Beach Boulevard, in that historic neighborhood. And he found out about what happened, and he even tried to talk her out of it. And he told her just leave the tea room alone and leave the toy shop alone, that the whole community would be really upset if those two businesses were to disappear. And that didn't matter. But he's the one that found me the location I'm in now. It used to be a gym.
I love that.
It was just a big like shoebox inside with a padded floor and mirrors that just went from the very front of the building to the very end. And when I saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, how's this gonna happen?
Now, you used to have two separate rooms. You had the main tea room and then an opening in between, and then the party room. Things are very different now. The party room is hidden. Tell them how you have to enter into the party room.
Yes. So my love of all things fantasy came into play. And when I got the new place, it was just one big room. And so I was like, how am I going to separate doing the parties separate from the tea room? Should I just do the parties only and not the tea room because it is just one space? And I didn't want to do that because, like I said earlier, the neighborhood would have been really upset if the tea room was gone. And I wanted to have a real shot at running it. So we decided to build out a room, with pony walls. The ceilings are really high at the new location. And my mom painted a vanilla sky. And then my husband built the pony walls for us. They're tall. They're about 10 feet tall, I think, or a little taller. And the way you get in is when you walk into the tea room, you look around and it looks like pretty much one room with the long hallway, but then there is a big armoire and, and a skeleton key. And you turn the skeleton key and that opens up the doors and that takes you into the secret room. So it's our version of a speakeasy.
Yep, with a Narnia twist. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just delightful. And every time I go with someone new, I'll say, hi, good to see you. Go check that out. They're like, huh? What? It's an armor. Like, I'm telling you, go open it. Okay, okay. And then they're like, oh. So for one of our fundraisers, we're doing a Midsummer Night's Dream in August. And a month before, we always do a wearable craft that goes with it. So that's where we're going to have our afternoon tea to make the head wreaths of flowers, whether people want to be a fairy or a lover from Midsummer Night's Dream. I thought everybody could wear a floral wreath. So that's what we're going to be making in your party room. Very excited for that.
Yeah, I'll set up something too so they can do 2 arts and crafts projects.
You just spoil us too much. And the amazing desserts. You said one of the girls there made those desserts. Those were incredible. That chocolate thing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's little Ivy, the one that looks like a doll. She's as cute as can be. She is the hardest little worker. She's a little go-getter and she is an amazing baker. And she's like, let me make some desserts. So then I'm like, these are incredible.
Yeah, I've been craving that chocolate one ever since. In fact, I took a bite. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So after that, I took bites that were like a tenth of the size because I wanted to make it last. It was so good. Sorry, I keep going on these tangents, but I'm a fan. What would you say at this point, with all that you've done, what's the most rewarding aspect of your work?
My favorite part of the whole party process is when they first walk in and they turn the key and look inside. It's all down to that.
I get it because that encapsulates everything about the experience.
Yeah. And I get butterflies still, even 21 years later. I still get butterflies before every party. I love that countdown part just before the party, like the last 5 minutes before the official start time of making sure everything's in place and just scanning the room.
What has surprised you the most about your work, whether it's the tea room or the parties or anything?
No joke, the dishes. There are so many dishes involved. Setting the table, all the dishes that you have to wash afterwards. It's just never ending. And we wash them all by hand. Even if we had a dishwasher, it's still quicker by hand.
Are there any misconceptions about what you do?
I would say, as far as the parties, it is a lot harder than it looks. The party part is the easy part, seeing it all come together and everyone's in a good mood and excited and all the hard work part is done. It's really just displaying it at that point. It's the stuff leading up to the party that's difficult. The never-ending checklist that you have that seem to have an end to it. Also, I have a hard time just with just doing the basic managerial stuff. I can't do the office paperwork, all the HR stuff, and then also run the tea room at the same time. I'm doing it, but I'm doing it very badly.
I was going to ask what your biggest challenge has been as a solopreneur, but is that it? Is it the management stuff, wearing all the different hats?
Yes, the managerial stuff, the office, the paperwork, the making sure all your permits are in order and that you're up to date with everything. Like it just changes constantly, and it's just that alone is a full-time job. Like right now I'm looking at different piles of different, different stuff that I need to work on.
Oh,
And even at the end of the day, I'll still feel like I didn't get anything done, even though you do.
have you at this point, now that you've been doing all this for several years, have you seen any trends or shifts in your industry, whether you want to talk about the parties, the mainstream attitude toward mythical creatures, the tea industry? What shifts have you seen overall with everything you do?
I would say definitely the fact that there's a thing called cottagecore. All things like granny related is in right now. And I think that's a big surprise that it's cool. And I love it. I've always loved all that stuff, knitting and doilies, and of course, tea parties. That's been a big surprise to see that the style that I've loved for so long, Hansel and Gretel and fairies and fantasy. And I so badly want to have a little farm or a little witchy cabin in the woods, chickens and all that stuff. So I'm so happy to see that that's popular. So people are coming to the tea room a lot because it fits that aesthetic. So that's nice. That's a big surprise.
And if anybody could pull off having a little witchy farm, it's you. And I would bug you for us to do retreats there.
Yes. Well, that's my dream. That's where,
Ah,
yeah, that's the end goal. A place like that I live in, and then I have another one that we rent out. We can do little weddings there, and then there's like a little farm with rescue animals and
oh. Well, the good news is being a fairy, you live really long. So
yeah.
you'll have plenty of time to do it.
Oh yeah.
This next question, I know what I'm going to say if you don't say it. What is something you can share about yourself that people may not expect, something that might surprise them?
I would say I'm actually a pretty shy person. You wouldn't think, going out and doing children's parties and fairy appearances for so long. I do fine when I'm in costume. I don't feel like myself, and I'm not shy at all. But once that costume's off, like for example, in the polar opposite of my husband, I always tack on an extra 20, 30 minutes when we go run errands because he'll talk to everybody.
Oh, he's so friendly.
Everybody. And I'm
Oh.
darting down the aisle to avoid people. So
Now, are you an introvert?
I am an extroverted introvert.
Okay,
So
got it.
I definitely am. I have some qualities that are extroverted, but I'm definitely an introvert as well.
And what's your fairy name?
I am Fairy Lulu to Berry.
Love that. The thing that I was going to say that people wouldn't expect when they see you with your beautiful fairy face and your wings and the whole thing, you are a hardcore, like, is it a mountain biker, or tell us about your extreme sports that you end up all beat up from.
Yeah, that would be mountain biking.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do a lot of outdoor activities: mountain biking, paddle boarding, kayaking. We have dune buggies, and I ride dirt bikes.
Dirt bikes. That's the one I was thinking. Yes. I just love it because there's a picture of you with your beautiful smiling face. And then if you pan down, you're like, what the heck? She's on a dirt bike. The caption will say something like, we had such a blast. I broke 3 ribs, but we had so much fun. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's hardcore. You could have been a stunt woman. Okay, now this one is going to tell us all about your soul. Tell us, what are your 3 favorite, whatevers they are? I don't care if it's movies, TV shows, books. What are your 3 favorite stories?
Let's see, 3 favorite stories. I'll start with books. One of my favorite books, I love the book The Wild Wood by Charles D. Lint and Brian Froud. I love all art books by Brian Froud. I have a lot that are signed. That actually is how I made my first pair of fairy wings. That's going way back. That's how the whole thing really started. Was I went to a book signing that Brian Froud was going to be at. It was going to be the first time that I met him. And I went with all my books. I was probably so annoying. And everyone was going to be dressed up in costumes. And I ordered a pair of fairy wings that did not arrive. And I didn't know what to do. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have a go at making a pair. And I made a pair, and I have that picture actually. And looking at them now, I'm like, man, those weren't very good. But I made a pair, and people seemed to like them. So I was like, okay, I'm going to try and make them a little better. And that's how that happened. Yeah, meeting Brian Froud for the first time. I have the first edition fairies, and he signed it. They're inside for me. So I have that one, which that's like the fairy Bible almost.
Oh, yes, exactly. Exactly. And any TV shows you watch?
My all-time favorite show is probably like Breaking Bad, Ozark. Love those. I just started watching, my mom told me about it. It has the guy from Breaking Bad, Your Honor. So I just started it last night, and I'm hooked.
Were you a fan of Game of Thrones?
Yes, loved Game of Thrones.
Were you still happy with Game of Thrones by the end?
No.
I have not been able to put those three words together until recently. I call it the great betrayal.
Yeah, I was not happy with that ending.
When that show came out, it was everything. I'm like, there's never been anything like this.
My mom and I were obsessed.
Me too. I mean, beyond, I've never been so obsessed with any product, entertainment thing the way I was with Game of Thrones. I watched all the deep dive shows on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah. My mom did the office door at the location on Studebaker. I still have the door. My mom painted, because of Game of Thrones, she painted a baby dragon sitting in a teacup on my office door. And so when I left there, we put the door with us. I'm going to cut it out and just make it an actual painting so I can just hang it on the wall. But right now it's just...
That's amazing. I had waited 6 years to do an event, and I finally did it. It was Game of Scones. That was a tea I did. And it was maybe after season 6 or 7, or I don't know what it was. But everybody got to come and answer questions. Like we had quizzes for trivia, of course, and everybody came dressed like what they wanted. But then using little green army men for fun, we had an actual battle. And were you going to be the Starks? Were you going to be the Lannisters? Were you going to be, or Cersei at that point? Or were you going to be the Khaleesi and all? And everybody was like, who's going to be the most benign ruler? It's Khaleesi, it's Daenerys. She's so sweet and girl power. And I'm thinking, I bet you're regretting that now. And especially you who named your children after her.
Yeah. I do parties for little girls that were named Arya watching Game of Thrones.
Well, at least they weren't named Daenerys or Khaleesi,
Yeah.
On to cheerier stuff. What are your favorite movies?
So I'm a big fan of horror movies, but not like the gore horror movie. I love the movie Hereditary. I can watch that movie over and over again. The last 20 minutes is the best 20 minutes of a horror movie. I love that one, and I love The Ring. Those two movies are amazing. And then I've seen 16 Candles probably.
Oh,
And probably.
I love that. And by the way, since you're bringing up a John Hughes movie, did you know that your tea room is a few blocks away from Ferris Bueller's?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen the house, and I have also done a party at the Donnie Darko house, which is just down the street.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I love Donnie Darko.
Yep, Summer Temple. They owned Don Temple Storage down on Studebaker. I used to live in that house, and I have done a few parties for her. Yeah, it's just down the street.
Oh, that's cool. My favorite horror movie doesn't even count because I'm not into horror. Mine, by far, is A Cabin in the Woods.
Oh, that is a good movie.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I like stuff that's tweaked, like anything that's dark and twisted. I'm right there.
They're making Beetlejuice. I'm looking forward to that. My nickname in high school was Beetlejuice because this was the 1989, 1990. So I'm aging myself, but this is when the first Beetlejuice came out, and I was a goth girl in high school.
Oh, okay.
When I would walk down the hallways, they would say Beetlejuice 3 times. All of high school, I had to deal with that.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure that got old really quick.
Yeah.
At least there's something good. At least it's back and being cool. I want to talk to you about doing a Beetlejuice event when it comes out.
That would be really fun.
Yeah. Okay, so your 3 favorite movies. See, the horror thing, the idea that you've got horror and 16 Candles, that you've got dirt biking and you do tea parties and you have fairy wings. You are the most fascinating person, I'm telling you. This is just so fun to get to know you. So what are you looking forward to next?
I would say we have a 5-year plan, and that would be to finally have that little witchy cabin in the woods and kind of semi retire, leave the tea room in the hands of the Carrie girls that work there,
Oh,
check on them every once in a while. And then I can focus on having the cabin in the woods and doing little small intimate weddings, and maybe even having a tea room there if I have enough land. Have the tea room in a cute little house, have the witchy cabin, and the rescue farm animals, and definitely chickens.
well, your timing is perfect. Curated, eclectic, very specific niche theme events are getting more and more popular. And what you're talking about, the idea of having rescue farm animals and this curated experience, this is what people are craving. So your timing's perfect.
Thank you. I do have like one, I keep forgetting about it. Well, not forgetting about it. It's just we're having to wait on getting a new engine. We bought a boat.
Oh,
1964 Sabercraft Impala. It's red and white. It looks like a vintage car, but it's a boat. And we named it La Ti Da. Seats 7 people, but you need a captain. So we're going to do little tea parties on the boat.
okay. I'm signing up now. I want to be your first cruise for real.
Yeah. So we're going to get our captain's license and dress like vintage clothes and give people little tours around Naples and Huntington Beach canals, especially like at Christmas time and, little birthdays.
We need to do this right away. I live in Naples.
Oh, really? Nice.
Yes, I'm looking at across at the bay right now. I knew you'd have something amazing coming up soon. Oh, I'm so excited.
Right now, the engine that we have can go on the ocean, but we also want it to be able to go on lakes. And in order to do that, we have to have a 2-stroke. So once we get that, then we'll start putting it all together. But I've been working on like the website and all the details, and it's a part T boat.
Do you think you'll have it by this Christmas?
That's the goal.
Okay, I'm literally booking your first party. I'm literally like jazz handsing all over the place here because I'm so excited. Okay. On Sundays, we usually give our listeners a little gift. Do you have any sort of gift for our listeners today?
I do. If you come into the tea room, you'll get 10% off.
Oh,
You'll also get, even if you don't come in to eat, just come in and say hi, you'll get a little crystal fairy spoon.
oh my gosh. Okay, I'm coming in right away. Just for the fairy spoon. And for those who are not blessed to be in Southern California, in Long Beach, this will give you incentive to come out. Or if you have friends that live in California, do them a favor by having them go to Dream Come True, because that experience she mentioned when people turn the key and open the armoire doors and see there's an entire party room that's all decorated fantastically and mythically. It's literally a dream come true to get to have that experience. So even if you're not in California, tell your friends who are not to miss out on it because it's well worth it. And I'm getting in the mood to go to Tea at Elena's right now, actually. In our non-interview podcast episodes, we assign listeners a tiny task each day to keep them moving forward towards their goals and just give them the life that they want. Is there any sort of tiny task you could assign people today?
I would say definitely make your bed. You should always make your bed every morning, and it shows that you accomplished at least one thing that day. And if you did at least one thing, then you're winning.
Spoken like a true fairy. That's maybe the best advice we've ever gotten on the show, to be honest. I think that's fantastic. Is there any advice you would give to someone who wants to start a business, whether it's in fantasy or tea or both? And I ask because both of those are incredibly challenging.
I would say find something that you truly love in the industry and figure out a way how you can make money doing it, and do your research, like go to different tea rooms and tea experiences and see what you like and take those things from all the different places to make the perfect place that's just for you.
And if they wanted to have a business that was a general business in fantasy, whether making mermaid tails or fairy wings or whatever, if they want to have a fantasy business, any suggestions there?
Yeah, practice makes perfect, and all the little details count. And that's what makes you stand out, is when you pay attention to all of the little details. So even if it's something as small as making a tiny little pair of earrings or a big elaborate prop. When people see that you really took the time out to make it just right, it makes it extra special, and it makes it more desirable and fulfilling.
It means a lot to them. And something I forgot to bring up earlier, when you've talked about all the stuff you've done and you've got this amazing husband who's helping you, you've done most of this. It was almost 20 years that you were doing it on your own, right?
Yes, we've been together about 5 years.
Wow.
Got married in September. Helped me a lot the last two locations. I met him almost at the very beginning of COVID, a couple months before it happened.
All those years before that, when you were working at the automobile club and doing the ferry business and the parties, that was you having to do everything pretty much, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was all just me, and of course my mom helping out with decorating the first place.
Any last thoughts you want to share with the listeners?
Just stay magical.
I love that. Thank you again. I've so been looking forward to this, and I know how busy you are, and for you to carve out time for this, I really appreciate it. Cheriste som, everyone. Tuta.
Ta-ta.
And now I will hit the stop record button. You literally are the most fascinating person I know. Oh my.